wheels gripped, and the coach rolled through into the courtyard. The girls ran up beside me and watched as the coachman got down and leaned shivering against the large back wheel and mopped his forehead before opening the door of the coach. Out there stepped, cool as you please, a skinny old gentleman in black, who looked at the coachman as if to say, "Nerves? I advise you to have him cut out, my man, and braided into a whip, the better to guide these shambling nags." Dusted off the flakes of snow that had had the impertinence to settle on his bony old shoulders, and made his way across the white courtyard, where the darkness was already beginning to pile up in the corners, as if driven there by the wind. Johann the footman opened the castle door and let out a great quantity of light, which leapt inside again as soon as he shut it. The coachman began to unharness the horses, with many head-shakings and gesturings to the groom, while the girls tried to guess who the visitor might be. They were English, not Swiss at all, though they picked up enough of our language in the time they'd been here to sound like natives. Lucy was 12 and Charlotte was 10, and I wasn't much older myself, but I counted myself more fortunate by far, because I had a mother still alive and a brother, and no grim uncle like Count Karlstein. They had no other relatives, and since their parents had both died in a shipwreck, they had no choice but Count Karlstein or an orphanage. And if they'd known what he'd be like, they'd have chosen the orphanage without a second's pause. They'd been here a year now, poor things. He'd been here for 9 nearly. Old Count Ludwig Karlstein, the previous count, had died without an heir, so the estate had passed to Count Heinrich Karlstein, a thin, dark man, much given to gnawing his nails, muttering to himself, and poring over works of German philosophy at midnight in his stone-wall tapestried study. Nothing so bad in those things, of course, but he had other defects, such as a temper you'd have had put down for its own sake if it had been a dog, a vile, sarcastic tongue, and, worst of all, a kind of bright-eyed delight in being cruel, whether it was to a horse, or a dog, or a servant, or a little niece from another country with nowhere else to go. But there it was. He was the master. And, meanwhile, Lucy had remembered who the visitor was.
"It's the lawyer, Charlotte, the old man from Geneva. He gave us that dark sweet wine and some cake while we waited for Uncle Heinrich."
Meister Highfish?
"That's right. Perhaps he's come to take us away again. Can he do that? Do you think he can do that, Hildy?"
Hildy, go and find out. Go and listen, please.
"I can't do that. They'd throw me out for good, and then where would you be? Just wait and see. That's the best thing to do."
Lucy made a face, but she saw I was right, and as it happened, none of us had long to wait, because only a minute or so later, Frau Müller the housekeeper, as surly as a goose, and with the same way of leaning at you with a long neck when she was cross, came bustling in.
"Miss Lucy and Miss Charlotte, you're to go and wash yourselves and brush your hair and come down to your Uncle Heinrich in 10 minutes. And you, Kelma, put that sewing down and get along to the drawing-room. Detweiler fell over in the courtyard and broke her ankle, stupid girl, so you'll have to be the parlour-maid for the time being."
They were hustled away, and I took a candle and hastened down to the drawing-room. Poor little Susie Detweiler. Count Karlstein had made her cry 3 times yesterday, and now she breaks her ankle. My heart was thumping wildly as I went in case my clumsiness attracted Count Karlstein's attention. I feared he'd lash at me like a tiger. But when I opened the door, I saw him so deep in conversation with the skinny old stranger, and the skinny old stranger paying such close attention to him, that neither of them noticed me for a moment or two. I don't know what I should have done, but I stood in the shadows, too nervous to go forward, and listened to what they were saying.
"Damn it, Highfish. You're not sure? After 9 years? How much longer do you want? Would 100 years be sufficient? Would you be able to say then, Yes, Count Karlstein, we have finally established that there is no other claimant, for if there was, he must be dead by now.
Meister Highfish showed no sign that Count Karlstein's tone annoyed him. He was as calm as he'd been when he stepped out of the coach, having missed certain death by the thickness of a wheel rim.
You asked me to make certain, Count Karlstein. Certainty without evidence in a case like this is worthless.
Worthless? You're worthless, Highfish. If you can't do better than that, if evidence is all you want, can't you manufacture some, eh? Make it up?
The lawyer stood up. That was all he did, but it stopped Count Karlstein's restless prowling and finger-gnawing and sideways kicks at the great log in the fire as effectively as if a gunshot had sounded. Meister Highfish had a presence that commanded your attention. Like an actor, he knew how to make every movement count. And his audience, both of us, one in the shadows beside the door and one scowling beside the fire, was held still, waiting for his next words, which were simple.
Good night, Count Karlstein.
Oh, sit down, man. Come and sit down again. I'm out of sorts. Don't mind me. Go through it again, will you?
And he threw himself into the carved oak chair at the other side of the fireplace, bent down to tear off a strip of bark from one of the logs in the hearth, and shredded it slowly into tiny pieces.
The only son of old Count Ludwig Karlstein was stolen from his cradle 20 years ago. I have traced him as far as Geneva, where a child answering to the same description was placed in a foundling's home a short while after he disappeared. That child, if it was he, grew up and became a groom, working in the stables of the Black Bear Inn. Then he joined the army, and that is the last we know. His regiment was scattered at the Battle of Bodelheim. He may have been taken prisoner, or he may be dead. And that, I repeat, is all we know.
That's the best you can do.
That is the best anyone can do, Count Karlstein. There is no one in Switzerland who knows more about the affairs of the estate of Karlstein than I do, and so what I have told is the limit of human knowledge on the subject.
Was there a hint of sarcasm in his tone? Maybe, but Count Karlstein didn't hear it if there was. For he looked up then and saw me. He sprang to his feet with an oath.
How long have you been there, hussy?
Only a moment, sir. I knocked, but you didn't hear me.
The lawyer was watching. Otherwise, I think the Count would have hit me. He sent me out impatiently to fetch some wine, and when I came back, I found that he and Meister Highfish had given up all attempts at conversation and was standing at opposite ends of the room, examining the books, or the pictures, or the snow-filled darkness outside the window. I served them the wine, and then the girls came in. Meister Highfish bent and shook their hands, and asked them how they were, and a warmth came into his expression. He looked as dry as dust, and no more kindly than a silver ink-pot, but he was as polite and attentive to those two little girls as if they'd been the Duchess of Savoy and her twin sister. Lucy and Charlotte blossomed, and sat on the sofa at either side of him, sipping their wine and talking with all the elegance in the world, while their uncle prowled, gnawing his fingers, around the edges of the room, and said nothing. Presently, Meister Highfish stood up, and bowed to the girls, excusing himself, as it was time to dress for dinner. And while I cleared away the glasses, Count Karlstein came and stood by the fire again.
Lucy, Charlotte, how long have you been here now? A year, is it?
Almost, Uncle Heinrich.
How would you like a holiday?
We'd love it.
Leaving tomorrow afternoon. Just a few days.